y'all. And what I'm going to do here is talk through high performance driver education with plenty of opportunity for questions. Uh, I need to welcome a few folks. First, I want to welcome our National Vice President, Diana Quinn, who's assisting me in putting this on. I really appreciate her. I couldn't do it without her. We've got our National Treasurer, Dave Womer, here with us. I appreciate him coming into this. And we've got Director at Large Jim Roberts, who's also serves with me on the National Performance Driving Committee and is a previous chair of that committee. And so I'm really glad to have him here to back me up in case I say something really stupid or something. So it's good to have you here, Jim. And if there's someone else I should be introducing that I missed, I apologize. Some ground rules for today. One, I ask you to stay muted unless you're called upon. That way the background noise doesn't start driving the presentation. It's kind of like, being in a room with a speaker and, kind of not having side conversations. I'd like to entertain questions, and I'd like during the presentation to ask a question. Just chat your questions to all, and that way I can see it in my chat window, and Diana can see it in her chat window, and at the right time she can draw my attention to them. But do it to all so that both she and I and everybody else sees the question. And if you know the answer to the question, it's okay to chat the answer to it too, by the way. Well, when I get done with the presentation, we're doing more routine questions. We'll just go ahead and use the raise hand function. We'll call on you, and then we'll just have you ask your question verbally. But during the presentation, please chat your questions to all. And in the unlikely event that we get Zoom bombed and we can't defeat it, we'll just terminate the presentation immediately and immediately come up with a new link and email that out. So if that were to happen, and it's only happened like once in the last 4 years, so it's pretty unlikely, but if that were to happen, watch your email, we'll send out a new link, and then we'll come back in on a new presentation. Okay, so let's get started. Let's talk a little bit about why I'm giving this presentation. I want more people to be interested in doing high performance driver education in MBCA. Why is that? Well, one, I personally really enjoy introducing people and seeing the delight in their eye of being on the track for the first time and realizing how much fun it really is. So I personally enjoy introducing people to it. But a couple other aspects of it as well. It'll make you a safer driver. You'll learn the aspects of what your car will actually do and how better to take advantage of the performance of your car. And in a larger perspective for MBCA, it's important as well. I fear that we have kind of not gone down this road very much in the last couple of years. And so folks that are interested in performance driving have kind of gravitated away from MBCA. And I think we need to attract them back in. And there's an awful lot of people that have AMG cars, which are, cars really very much made for the track. And I'd like to, be more appealing to that group of drivers. So from the club perspective, it's important to have this area be an area that our club is involved in. Now, my background for in the track, I did very intensive autocrossing for about 5 years. And if you don't know what autocrossing is a large parking lot with cones, and you go around a course for time. And I did that really intensively. And then I went to one high performance driving education event and was hooked. And I mean, hooked. Like I bought a car, turned it into a race car, and went racing for a little bit over a decade. I mean, that's hooked. And for many people that go to their first track event, they will be hooked like that. So it's very addictive. I tell you, it really is. It's a tremendous amount of fun. But I encourage you to do it. Now, if you do high performance driver education, let me talk through, what you'll learn in doing it. We teach things like seating position, how to seat yourself in the car to be able to control the car as best you possibly can. We'll teach you about smoothness. An essential part of being fast and being safe on the track is being smooth, driving smooth, making it smoothly, making your control inputs to the car smooth. Very, very important. It's important on the street too. We will teach you about the line. And the line refers to the fastest and safest way around the racetrack. And it's typically all the way on the outside to all the way on the inside to all the way on the outside again. But there's a lot more to it than that. And we try not to just teach you, what that line is for that track. We're much more interested in teaching you how to evaluate a track and determine where you should best place your car for best results on that track, given your driving experience, your car, and that track. We'll teach you about effective braking. What I find for folks that have not been to the track before is that they do not appreciate how effective their brakes really are and how to best use their brakes. And that translates into a better experience in avoiding accidents on the street as well. One of the things you'll learn is when you're approaching the car's limits. What the sounds are like, what the steering feels like, what the yaw angles on the car feel like as you're approaching the car's limits. And you really need to know that, both on the track and in daily driving. You'll learn about vehicle dynamics. And an awful lot of what you do on the track and driving your car is about controlling the weight distribution of the car. When the road topography changes, and every time you make either a steering, a gas, or a brake input, you're changing the weight distribution of the car. And changing the weighting of the wheels changes the way the car reacts. And so it's part of the understanding of how to get the best out of your car and to take advantage of the topography of the track. And so it's one of the really, really important things to learn, and it takes a long time to learn that well. You'll learn situational awareness. You'll be out on the track with other cars, and some will be faster and some will be slower. And so you'll learn to keep track in your mind of where the other cars are, and as you're approaching another car, how to show them that you would like to pass them, or how to choose the appropriate place to pass for the car that's behind you. And I'll talk a little bit about passing rules here in a minute. I'll tell you, no one's going to push you to go faster than you're comfortable. Okay, no one's going to push you to go faster than you're comfortable. But also, this is a lifetime learning process. I first went to the racetrack in 1989, and I am still learning every time I go out there. And that's one of the most wonderful things about it. You can always go out and learn something. And in fact, for every session you go on the track, you ought to have an objective for that session. I'm going to work on this in this track session and take that away with you and become a better driver. And so it's a wonderful lifelong learning process. So let me mention a little bit about what cars are okay. Well, first, pretty much every Mercedes is fine for the track. Mercedes handle very, very well, even the big four-door sedans. I remember Ruben running around the track in his S600 back in October at Atlanta Motorsports Park. And I know that Cameron Davis brought this 220 limousine to Road Atlanta not too long ago, and he was amazed at how well it actually handled, considering how long the wheelbase was. So pretty much all Mercedes are fine. Convertibles, all the Mercedes convertibles and roadsters after 1990 have some type of rollover protection. And so you do need rollover protection. All the newer Mercedes since 1990 have that. But you might ask, well, how about an R107, a 450 SL or a 560 SL? With a hard top on, they'll be fine. No one's asked me about Pagodas, but I think Pagodas would probably be fine with the hardtop on as well. Now, we welcome other makes of cars too, but for convertibles, rollover protection is required. And some of the manufacturers were not as quick as Mercedes was to provide rollover protection for convertibles. And so cars like first generation Miatas will require a rollover structure because they have no actual rollover protection. Porsches, the early cabriolets, the 944 cabriolets, 968 cabriolets do not have rollover protection, so they would need a roll bar to participate on the track. Oh, you might ask about SUVs. All the Mercedes SUVs are fine. The Porsche SUVs, your typical SUVs are fine. BMW was a little slower to implement rollover protection. So for the BMW convertibles, some of those do not have factory rollover protection and will require a roll bar. So, the bottom line is that if in doubt, ask your registrar or the person running the event. It's not unusual for me to field a fair amount of those questions in the time preceding up to an event. So let's talk a little bit about safety. Now, one thing that I very early took away as I started driving on the track is how the track is actually significantly safer than driving on the public roads. Now, how do we achieve that? Well, for high performance driving education, we group the drivers by experience level. So there'll be a group of novices, people that haven't done it very much, and there'll be a group with a little bit more experience, and then there'll be an experienced group. So we group by experience level. We give you an instructor in the car if you haven't done this before, if you're not approved to go out solo. Now you have to do what the instructor says. If the instructor is telling you to brake, you need to brake, or go to the left or whatever. So that's an aspect of the safety. You must know and comply with the flags on the course. And flags are always discussed in the safety brief in the driver's meeting prior to the event. And I'm not going to go in detail about the flags today because I'm going to cover that in a subsequent session, although I will show you. Can you let me screen set? Yeah, I can share. Share screen here for a second. I'll just show you flags. Where did it go? Where did they go? There they are. Just a second. Let me screen share. And I grabbed this down off the Atlanta Motorsports Park website. And this is just a set of the typical flags that you see at the racetrack. And you will need to know those. They will, as I said, they'll be covered in the classroom session. They'll be covered in the driver's meeting. And one of the ones that you'll see most often is this yellow flag. And the yellow flag means make sure you're in control. There's an incident either around the turn or over the hill that you can't see. And I bring that up as a safety aspect because you've got corner workers on the course looking in places where you can't see and using this flag system to warn you of things in front of you that are outside of your vision. Okay, I'm going to come out of screen share here. Okay. And then the classroom instruction itself is part of the safety of the event. So everyone hears the same set of rules and is taught the same type of things. And of course, we have an ambulance with advanced life support folks present. Now, in an MBCA event, we don't typically have, incidents that require the use of an ambulance, but we still have the ambulance there. And, honestly, with the demographics of our membership, you're probably more likely to have a medical incident in the paddock than you are to have an issue on the track with the car. But we'll have an ambulance with advanced life support there in any case to help out if that becomes necessary. So let me talk through a typical day. Let's see, do I have any questions yet? No questions. Okay, I'm going to do a screen share again and show you a schedule that I had put together for the last event I ran. Okay, are you seeing? Are you seeing a schedule?
Yes.
Okay, good. I, for some reason, can't tell what I'm sharing. All right, so this is a schedule I put together for a last event I ran. And when you sign up for an event, sometime in the week to a few days before the event, you're going to get an email from the registrar that will give you information. Sometimes he has the event scheduled. Very often, though, it'll be in the morning, come at this time, park in this place, and so on. But look very carefully for that email. What I always do is print it out and carry it with me as well, but there's always useful information in that. And one of the things I want to comment on for folks that have not done this before, arrive early. Now, you see the first thing that it looks like you need to be doing is going to this driver's meeting, which of course is mandatory. But you notice I put gates open here at 6 and registration tech 7 to 7:45. And I'm going to come out of screen sharing. Well, I'll leave that up for a little bit longer. But and so when you get to the track, first thing you do, you park the car and you go to the registration desk and sign the waivers. There will typically be a waiver or two for you to sign, and there'll often be a packet of information that will be handed to you. Then you go back to your car and you take all the loose stuff out of your car. I mean, you're going to be going, pretty quickly left and right on the racetrack, and you don't want loose stuff flopping around inside the car. And so you take all the loose stuff out of your car, and then you go through a grid tech inspection. I'm going to come out of screen sharing here. Let's see. Okay, there. Stop share. All right. And you also have been assigned a number for your car. It'll usually be in the email the registrar will send to you. And before you go over to tech inspection, you put the numbers on your car. Now, this does not have to be elaborate. I usually carry some blue masking tape, and if I don't have a plate that already has the numbers on it, I just make numbers on the side of the car with blue masking tape. And I usually carry some spare just in case somebody needs to do that. So you go to the tech line, and you will have already had a tech inspection, which is required in advance. There will be a form on the registration page that you download, and you either take to your mechanic, or if you're technically qualified, do the tech inspection form yourself. But so the inspection done at the grid is a very brief, short tech inspection where they'll collect your tech inspection form. And oh, by the way, you won't be allowed to participate on the track if you don't bring a tech inspection form. So make sure you get that done and bring it. And this brief tech inspection will look at your helmet to make sure it meets the helmet requirements. The current helmet requirements are Snell SA 2015 or newer. Motorcycle helmets are not okay. And you check by just looking, lift the liner and look at the sticker inside the helmet. And it will usually say Snell SA 2015 or Snell SA 2020. Next year, it'll probably transition to being that SA 2020 helmets will be required. They'll check your numbers to make sure you have the numbers you're supposed to have. Often they'll put something on your car to indicate which run group you're in. And some organizations check wheel torque at this grid tech. Now, I don't do that, and we don't typically do that in MBCA. If you've gone to Porsche Club PCA events, they will almost always check lug bolt torque at this grid tech. And I mentioned that because most of the Porsches take a 19mm socket for the lug nuts. Most of the Mercedes I'm familiar with take a 17mm socket for the lug nuts, so they may not have the right socket for you. And of course, since the lug bolts and nuts are different sizes, the torque's different. So if you're going to a PCA event, my recommendation to you is carry a torque wrench, carry the socket, carry the extension. I put it in the passenger seat, and I have the torque wrench set to the torque spec because they're not going to know what it is. So they'll have to look it up. I will usually just hand them the torque wrench and say, it's set to 81 foot-pounds. This is the right one for my car. And of course, when they know you're that prepared, they probably won't even check after that. But just be aware, the socket's a different size and the torque's different on the Mercedes than it is on the Porsches. Be ready for that if you're going to a PCA event. And they'll probably help, look for loose items just in case you haven't taken them all out. The other thing to look at there is to check that your floor mat on the driver's side isn't one of the loose floor mats. Any of the loose floor mats need to come out of the car because they could potentially jam up under the brake pedal or interfere with the accelerator pedal. The Mercedes floor mats that are clipped down or snapped down to the floor are perfectly fine. They don't have to come out. They're very secure. And grid tech may check your battery secure. That's checked on the tech checklist anyway, but you certainly don't want a battery moving around as you're going left to right, on the racetrack. That can really make a mess of things. Okay, so we've gotten through all the items that are in advance of the driver's meeting. And so, this is why you need to arrive pretty early before the event to get that stuff done. The driver's meeting is mandatory. You've got to go to the driver's meeting. The driver's meeting will cover the safety rules. It'll cover the flags. It'll cover where the passing zones are for that track. And it'll cover any unique track issues. And it's essentially, it's a safety briefing for the day. At the end of the driver's meeting, there'll be the instructor-student pairing. So they'll call it the instructor name and the student name, and then you all will go off together and talk for about 5 minutes. The instructor will do this little interview, and you probably won't recognize he's doing this, but what he's trying to do is ascertain how much experience you have and what modifications your car might have. And the other thing that comes out of the instructor-student pairing meeting is where you're going to meet. It's really important to know as you're getting ready to go out on the track, if your instructor wants you to, go to the grid and he'll catch up with you there, or pick him up at a certain place, or he'll come to you in the paddock. But it's very important to be able to do that because you don't want to, miss out on track time when you and the instructor are trying to find each other. Any questions? No questions. Okay. So for the schedule I put up for you, the first thing on the track was the instructors go out and the students go into the classroom. And you'll have usually between 2 and 4 classroom sessions. Classroom sessions will be often about the same length as the track session, so they'll fit into the schedule. And the first classroom session will probably go over flags again. We'll go over seating position. We'll go over, the smoothness piece. And the subsequent sessions, the instructor will probably ask you for your questions and your observations on being on the track, and go over any concerns that you have or questions that you have about your track session. And then there will usually be some type of prepared, more advanced classroom items to go over. Okay, so you're done with the classroom and it's time to go on the track. The track sessions are usually between 20 and 30 minutes. The one I flashed up to you was mostly 25-minute sessions. You'll want to be ready early to maximize your track time. You don't want to miss out on track time. So a few minutes beforehand, you get in your car, get your helmet on, get met up with your instructor, and get in line. There'll be a line of cars waiting to go out on the track. Some tracks will have a PA system, and they'll be reminding you. They'll say, 10 minutes till green group session, 5 minutes till green group session. Other tracks won't have the PA system, and you'll just have to keep track of it yourself. One thing I do is I make a copy of the schedule and I shrink it down. I highlight all the sessions that I have to attend, and then I put it in a clear plastic envelope and put it on a lanyard around my neck. And usually on the back side of that, I put a track map. Now, as an instructor, I find it very useful to have a track map when I'm trying to tell a student about, if I'm telling them about, say, turn 3, it's useful to be able to point to a track map and where turn 3 is in case they aren't really knowing where the turn 3 is. So if you're not familiar with the track, it's also very useful to have the track map there around your neck anytime you need to look at it. That is when you're not on the track. So, recognize first time out on the track, your tires and brakes are cold. They're not as effective as they are when they're warmed up. So that's always something to consider the first time you go out early in the session. And so the instructor will be there with you. The instructor will tailor their instruction to what you need. Sometimes it's a continuous flow of, brake, turn, turn out, gas. Sometimes it's very quiet as the instructor gives you some subtle instructions. It depends on your learning style and what you need. And the instructor will look at that and try to tailor the instruction to what's best for you. And sometime in here, it'll become to the end of the session, and the session is at the end because a checker flag is shown. And that's usually shown at the start-finish line, and it's sometimes shown at what's called the black flag station, which is farther along down the track. When you see the checkered flag, your session's over. You slow down, and we do what's called a cool down lap. We want our brakes to be as cool as they can be when we go into the pits. And so we try to go around the last lap without using the brakes very much, which means we go slower and use the engine RPM to slow us down. And when we go into the pits and into the paddock, we recognize that you've been going pretty fast out on the track, and your perception of speed's a little different. So you've got to be very careful to be going slow enough in the pits and the paddock and look for other cars, and that it's kind of a safety issue if you're going too fast in the pits and in the paddock. And it's also important to not set your parking brake, and you want to try to stop the car without much use of the brakes. You don't want the brakes to be hot and sit, and especially having the parking brake set. And we'll typically write a schedule that has 4 to 5 sessions for the day. If you haven't done this a lot, you very well may be getting tired by the end of the day. And it's okay to, not go out on the last session of the day, for example, if you're feeling too tired or fatigued for that. It's, for your safety. So that I will always remind my students of that as you get to the end of the day. Now, don't count on there being food or water at the track unless it's clearly indicated that there will be. So make sure you take your own water, especially. And remember to hydrate during the day. It is really easy to forget with the activity going on, the conversations you're having, and the fun you're having. It's really easy to forget to drink water. And so it's important to force yourself to drink some water during the day to make sure you maintain hydrated. And no alcoholic beverages are allowed till the last car comes off the track at the end of the day. So, that don't hydrate with beer. And I mentioned when you come off the track, your instructor is going to sit there and debrief you after that track session before they get out of the car. When you're out on the track, as an instructor, you can't use long sentences or discuss complex points. And so I'll kind of make a mental note of what I want to cover, and then we'll use the time immediately after the session before getting out of the car to discuss the more complex points that I want to cover. And I'll always talk to the student about what we want to work on in the next session. So that's a quick overview, and I really want to encourage you to ask questions about this. I want the barriers to entry to be very, very low, because it's really a fun thing to do. And what I always start the driver's meeting with our priorities here today are be safe, have fun, and learn something. And it is absolutely addictive. And I encourage you to sign up for one. We have our next event that we've got scheduled is as part of Star Summit Birmingham. It's on the 28th of July. And it's a great weekend of events, which includes factory tours, includes a concours or car show, a dinner, driving skills training at the Talladega Oval, and then a high performance driving education on Monday, the 28th of July at the Talladega Grand Prix Raceway, which is a wonderful track that I just love. And if you don't have something like that near you that Mercedes Club is doing, I encourage you to go to events from the other clubs. Like Porsche Club of America does a really good job with high performance driver education. There are a number of other organizations that do. Take a look and try to favor those that offer in-car instruction. Some only do lead follow, which is okay, but I really feel like the in-car instruction is the way to go. It's much more effective. The instructor can see what you're doing directly and give you immediate feedback and so I think you'll improve much quicker. I also, if your section is interested in putting on a high performance driver education event, the Performance Driving Committee is there to help. We can provide moral support. We can come and help you run the event. We have some instructors. I'm an instructor. Jim Roberts here is an instructor. We often have to borrow our instructors from other organizations, such as Porsche Club of America. But and that's one of the challenges of running these events, but we're glad to try to help you in doing that. And I'm scheduled a couple of other sessions. On February 19th, I'm going to talk through the pre-event tech inspection. And I just wrote an article for Star on that, so we'll elaborate on that on February 19th. And on March 26th, I'm going to do what would be essentially the first classroom session for a HPDE. And if there's other interest or other questions, I'm certainly willing to do something, do other follow-on sessions. I want to make it easy for you to come to an HPDE event and kind of lower the barriers. And I'd like to have more people in MBCA that are interested in doing this. So I'm open to questions. I'll stay here as long as you have questions for me. Anybody have questions?
Yep, we got a question from Kent. Can you talk about tires and insurance?
Okay, sure. Oh, there it is. Okay, I see the question. You will use tires faster on the track, obviously, than you use on the street. And one thing I have seen is that, I was using Michelin Sport 4S's, which are really wonderful all around tires, but they're great tires in the rain. They also have a lot of tread, and the edge of the tread heats up, and for the dry, I think the dedicated sticky track tires probably will last longer than the 4S tires because of the less tread. Now, HPDE, all the organizations pretty much run rain or shine unless it's a monsoon. Now, in the rain, you like a lot of tread. In the dry, less tread. In fact, slicks would be better, although, we don't do slicks for HPDE. But the 120 to 200 tread wear tires are really, really sticky, soft rubber. And they're really, really a lot of fun. And they're not very good at all in the rain. And I wouldn't encourage you to drive to the track on those tires, because if it rains, you're going to have a hard time, getting home. But by the same token, they're the most fun. They really, the 120 to 200 tread wear tires. What I usually do is I look very carefully at the weather forecast and either put on rains or sticky tires, and I usually carry a complete extra set myself. That may be a little extreme for some of you, but that's kind of what I do. I have a set of rains available to me. Most of the time, in our climate, it's usually dry. If you have the opportunity to do this in the rain, it's a wonderful learning experience, and you'll probably learn more running in the rain than you will in the dry. So, don't hesitate to actually go to one when there's rainy conditions. Okay, you also asked about insurance. If you have an high dollar car, you can get event insurance. Your regular insurance, for your street insurance is not going to cover you on the racetrack, but you can get track day insurance and you pay by the day. Haggerty offers it. There's a couple others that offer it. I've gotten that before, depending on which car I take. And so if you have an expensive car, it's a good idea to get that. John said, if you're serious, I wouldn't recommend all season tires. Yeah, I agree. Summer tires are a lot more fun. Absolutely. Other questions? Come on, we got plenty of time for questions. I know you have questions. What is the cost like per event? Typically, a one-day event is going to be around $300 and a two-day event is going to be around $600, but it depends. The higher dollar tracks, the organizer is amortizing the cost for those tracks. And so some of the expensive tracks like Watkins Glen are higher. And a track like Talladega Grand Prix Raceway is less expensive to run the event, so that'll be lower. So it kind of depends, but it's generally about $300 a day, $600 for a two-day event. Okay. Do any venues offer rentals for those who want to test the limits of the 30-year-old Mercedes? There are some that do, but it varies by location. I think at Atlanta Motorsports Park, there's probably the track itself doesn't offer rentals, but I think they can probably find people that will rent you a car if that's what you want. And so that's a question you'll have to ask of the facility, if there are places to do that. But I tell you, the 30-year-old Mercedes really aren't bad. I mean, my track car has 205,000 miles on it, and it's quite reasonable and reliable. What I've found is that the first time you take the car to the track, you kind of expose its weaknesses. And if it's a high mileage car, you see things like, well, the radiator needs to be replaced or something like that. But once you work through that, they tend to be pretty reliable. Okay, John asked, can I bring another make of car other than Mercedes? I couldn't afford an AMG track car and have a Mustang. Yes, other makes of cars are certainly acceptable. Just if it's a convertible, we have to be concerned about appropriate rollover protection. But other makes of cars are certainly acceptable. I should tell you what I paid for my AMG track car. What tracks do you use? Well, you can probably find an HPDE event at almost any racetrack in the country. The challenge, oh, why is there a whiteboard that just popped up? Diana, did you just do that? Yeah. Okay, anyway, let me continue to answer that question. What tracks do you use? You can probably find an HPDE event at any track in the country, but from the organizer standpoint, you need to be able to afford the track. Watkins Glen costs for a one-day event during the week, $21,000 to $23,000. And that's a lot of money. And you need a lot of cars to be able to pay for that track. Talladega Grand Prix Raceway costs about $6,600 to do a one-day event on a weekend. It's a lot more affordable and a lot less financial risk to do that. Barber is really, really an expensive track. PCA does events at Barber, and they'll have 170 to 200 cars to be able to afford the track. And it makes for a fun day, but it also makes for a pretty crowded track. My preference is the less expensive tracks where you don't have to run as many cars to pay for the track. So the answer to your question is it depends. And I'm certainly happy to continue. Jim, you have anything you want to add?
Well, what tracks do we use? We can use just about any track that SCCA uses, but right now, in addition to Talladega Grand Prix, we can use Barber. We we can use Atlanta Motorsports Park. We've done that, and there's we connect with other groups, and a couple of them will let us park together. So there's some camaraderie of other Mercedes drivers there. Um, that I think that helps a lot. PCA, the Porsche Club, is very, very aggressive with their driving and their passing, and they put people off quite a bit. I mean, they're good guys. I'm a member there, and I'm a national instructor, and Gary and I are both national instructor mentors. So that's about the top of the pyramid with them. But we've had a lot of experience, and but still, I don't like driving somewhere that I'm constantly looking in the mirror. I'm accustomed to being at the sharp end of the spear and being the leader in groups. So you got to have a really potent car to run with their instructors. Now, their novices are not that way because I've frequently coached a guy driving a Miata that wants to learn, or any Mercedes driver past all the Porsches that are in the novice group, even their 500 horsepower GT3s, because those cars are difficult to drive fast. A Mercedes is easy, relatively easy to drive fast at these speeds. And you want to have an instructor who's familiar with those cars. So at this point, we're also working with a group called Turn One that does most of their events at Carolina Motorsports Park, which is similar in configuration to Barber without the elevation change, and it's near Charlotte. I would say get with us depending on where you live and how far you're willing to travel, and we'll try to work with you to orient things with groups that we're working with. And
Yeah.
on the summer tires versus all season tires, I agree with John Fair. Um, and thank you, John, for joining in. Uh, I would say try it on the tires that your Mercedes came with. See how you like it. If you really like it, the best initial investments you can make, other than brake pads, I mean, you'll have a hard time getting a Mercedes dealer to put competition pads on your car, but you'll enjoy it more if you do. And if you get those dedicated shaved down tires, Tire Rack can advise you on which ones they're finding work best that way. Makes all the difference in the world to have those at the shave down depth. And like Gary pointed out, they do last longer. I've driven them to the track many times, even 1,000 miles away, and there's no significant wear driving them on the street. Um, you want them shaved to about half the depth that the tires come with. Um, and it just transforms the car to have that, plus really good brakes. And they're never going to make regular street car brakes suitable for driving on the track because they squeak. I have a close friend that's a Mercedes tech, and he says, I don't know why they even make an S-Class AMG, because the complaints we get are the car's noisy, the suspension is hard, and the brakes squeak. So you can hear the brakes squeaking by taking it up to 100+ miles an hour and stamp the brakes down hard once or twice, and they stop squeaking for a while. But um, personally, I'll put up with that and a firmer suspension to have the fun you have on the track.
Yeah, the car I just put up behind me is my routine track car, and it has racing brake pads in it, and they are really squealy, and I don't care. And it's really stiff, and I don't care. I like that.
Yeah, and how much did you pay for that car, Gary?
$3,500.
So so you don't have to spend a lot of money to have a good time.
Yep. Yeah, and it's an AMG.
The nice thing about AMGs versus Porsches is AMGs depreciate pretty steeply the first few years, and Porsches don't. And an older Porsche will cost more, much more than an older AMG.
Mm.
And I routinely track cars that are 40 to 45 to 50 years old, and they do just fine. I race cars that are 60 and 65 years old.
Oh, any other questions? We're yours for as long as you want.
How many of you have actually tried driving on the track like this before? I know John does it. He's addicted like Gary and I are.
Yeah, I saw his virtual background.
Yeah, right, right.
And I've been trying to get Kent to do this.
So the rest of you have not done it. Well, I would suggest coming to the one we have that we're having in July. Everything's air conditioned there, and we'll let you run with your windows up and your air conditioning on if you want to. And you might want to just do some laps at the Talladega Super Speedway just to say you've done it. To me, that's boring because I won the last road course race there. As a matter of fact, I've driven in all of them and won them that they had. And you know, the banking is like a straight when you're a road racer. So you just get down as low as they'll let you go and go around it without lifting.
Yeah,
But
120 is no challenge on that at all.
absolutely none. Nor is 140 or 150.
Yeah, but they won't let you do that in the parade laps.
Right, right. They'll take us up to about 125 if everybody behaves. And but at 110, you can take your hands off the wheel and it'll just stay in the lane it's in without lane assist. And if you want to change lanes, you just either squeeze the throttle a little bit or lift off a little bit and it'll change lanes. Under 110, you have to turn right in the left banked turns just to keep it from going down to the bottom. There you go. There's a
Yeah,
picture.
yeah. John brought up a Talladega picture.
He's done that some. So and we hope to see you back, John. We'll look forward to it. He lives in Minnesota, by the way.
Oh, wow. Well, good. Other questions, other comments? I want you to do this. This is fun. Okay. Well, then be on the lookout for the February 19th event where I'm going to talk about tech inspections for the event. And like I said, that's the subject of the next article in Star about it. And on March 26th, we'll do a classroom session. And if there's other things you want me to talk about, I'm open to doing that too.
Well, and also on that date, the next day is we work with our partners with PCA at Atlanta Motorsports Park, and that one, unlike other Porsche Club events, they're usually not terribly aggressive there, and it's not real crowded. So that's a good one if you're willing to come that far.
You talking February 22nd, Jim?
February 22nd, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah, one day event at Atlanta
It's a
Motorsports.
Saturday and it's just one day.
Yep. Yeah, I think Jim and I are both signed up to instruct for that one.
Right.
And
And
then
they try to place us with Mercedes drivers if
they have
if
any.
they have any. So,
The last 2 years, they've done that as a women's only novice class. They didn't do that for this year, but it worked out really well because it filled up almost immediately.
yeah, yeah, that's right.
Okay, well, I don't see any other questions popping up. Oh, how much does a typical tech, when is the next HPDE track event? The next one we're doing is the 28th of July. But if you look around motorsport and club registration, you can find something near you almost every weekend. Oh, more questions. Okay. Are there events for people who just want to go around the track for the experience and not race? Well, this isn't racing. This is HP high performance driver education, but most of the time you can go sign the waiver and sit and watch. We also often offer something called performance driving experience where, and I think some of the other organizations call it taste of the track, where you do, instead of full helmet required, full speed laps, you do more highway speed laps with classroom instruction and an instructor to essentially give you a taste of it to see if that's what you want to do. But you know, for the events I do, we had a lot of our club come out and just sit around and enjoy the day and watch too. And most clubs will let you do that if you sign the waiver. How much does a typical tech inspection cost? It really depends on who you take it to. It's typically $100 to $200 or something like that. And unlike most organizations, you know, MBCA will let you tech your own car if you have, you know, the confidence and the technical ability to do that. I mean, it's I
And
used to.
also, I found if you take it to a mechanic that you use regularly, typically they don't charge you to do that. They're checking your car anyway,
Yeah.
every time you take it. But if you're there regularly, I found they don't even charge you more to fill out the form.
Yep. Are there lower level driving skill events? Yes, there are. There's a couple of other options of things to do. One is autocrossing that I mentioned when we first started. Autocrossing is you know, low to medium speed event in a parking lot around cones. It is a lot of fun. It's a slightly different skill set. It's a lot more approachable in that you can usually find one somewhere near you, and the cost is pretty low. So I certainly encourage you to look for those. And the other is we offer driving skills training periodically. And I think Diana came to that last one we did last year, where we did not require a helmet, and we taught basic driving skills like ABS braking, brake while turn, kind of a lower speed autocross, wet skid pad, skid recovery. And we did that at a sheriff's department training facility. We're going to help with one of those up in Milwaukee in September as well. And I've got one of those scheduled in June down here at the Columbia County Sheriff's Training Facility on the 21st of June. So if anyone wants to come to that, you're certainly welcome to come to that. That's a little bit lower speed, but it's designed like the teen driving courses that you sometimes see, but they're for all ages.
We'll do it at Star Summit also, and so we do emergency avoidance exercises, and also just have people try to stay on course while they're trying to read a text or send a text.
Yeah, distracted driving. Yeah.
Distracted driving. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of fun. Any other questions? Looking over at the chat. We're here for you. And we're here to help. And I'd love to see more sections want to run events like this, because it's fun.
Yeah, and even if you are with another group somewhere, let us know. And if we can possibly work it into our schedules, both Gary and I are willing to travel some distance to help our members learn. And I think most anywhere in the country, they'll accept us because of our racing and Porsche Club senior instructor status. So we can work it out. Now, the thing about these things is, if you're going to go to a Porsche Club event, you better sign up really early. Just as soon as they open registration, as Gary said, the one there in Atlanta filled up in 25 or 30 minutes. And that's the way it is here in Birmingham. Like, they do 3 a year at Barber, and those early groups fill up like within an hour of the time they open registration usually.
And they actually make money on those events as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
an
like
interesting challenge for it.
significant amounts of surplus. We're nonprofit, so we don't
Yeah.
say if they make a profit, but basically they double what the cost of the track is what they take in.
Yeah. Yeah, I certainly like the events that have fewer cars. I went to a Turn 1 Motorsports event at Carolina Motorsports Park this year on a Friday in September, and there weren't that many people there. And I had just wonderful track time driving almost all by myself for a number of laps. And going on the way out, PCA had an event there the next weekend, and you would not believe how many cars were just lined up waiting to get in. And I guarantee those folks for that weekend did not have anywhere near as pleasant track time as I did on Friday. Okay, anybody else have anything? Okay, we'll put February 19th on your schedule. We'll talk about tech inspection. Okay, and let me know what else you'd like me to talk about. I'm glad to add that to the list of things to put on the agenda. Thank you for coming.
Hold on,
Diane?
somebody put their hand up.
Oh, they
Or-
did? Okay.
No, it's just thumbs up. Sorry. Okay.
Okay. All right, Diana, thank you for helping me. Jim, thank you for helping me, and thank all of you for attending. And if you have any questions afterwards, send me a note, give me a call, something like that. I'm always glad to help.
Thank you.
Okay.